Avoidants couldn't care less about typical seduction tactics or obvious displays of sexuality. What gets them completely obsessed is psychological stimulation that triggers their deepest attraction patterns. These mental turn-ons hit harder than any physical attraction because they activate the exact psychological triggers that avoidants find irresistible but can rarely find in other people. 1. Emotional intelligence without neediness. Nothing turns on an avoidant faster than someone who can read their emotional state perfectly but doesn't become clingy or demanding based on that information. When you can sense their mood, understand their patterns, and respond appropriately without making it about your own emotional needs, you become psychologically irresistible. They're attracted to emotional intelligence that doesn't come with strings attached. You can see when they're overwhelmed and give them space without drama. You can recognize when they're pulling away and don't chase them or take it personally. You understand their psychology without using that understanding to manipulate or control them. This combination of insight and independence drives them crazy because it's exactly what they need but never expect to find. Most people who understand them emotionally become needy about that connection. When you understand them but maintain your own emotional equilibrium, you become their psychological fantasy come to life. 2. Mysterious unavailability. Avoidants are magnetically drawn to people who are genuinely unavailable rather than playing hard to get. When your unavailability comes from having a rich, full life rather than from manipulation tactics, it triggers their deepest attraction patterns because it feels authentic rather than strategic. You're not unavailable to create intrigue. You're unavailable because you have priorities, goals, and commitments that don't revolve around them. This genuine scarcity makes you infinitely more valuable than someone who's always accessible and eager to drop everything for their attention. Your mysterious unavailability forces them to compete for your time and energy, which activates their chase response in ways that availability never could. They become obsessed with earning access to someone whose time actually has value, rather than someone who's always waiting for their attention. 3. Unpredictable emotional responses. Instead of being consistently warm and accommodating, having genuinely unpredictable emotional responses keeps them psychologically engaged in ways that predictability never could. They can't figure you out completely, which means they have to keep paying attention to understand your patterns. Sometimes you're warm and engaged, sometimes you're politely distant, sometimes you're playfully challenging, and sometimes you're completely focused on your own priorities. This unpredictability isn't manipulation. It's authentic complexity that makes you endlessly fascinating. They become addicted to trying to decode your moods and responses because you don't follow the simple patterns they're used to from other people. You're not always happy to see them, not always willing to engage, and not always impressed by their usual charm tactics or intellectual stimulation that challenges them. Avoidants are turned on by people who can match or exceed their intellectual capacity while challenging their perspectives and assumptions. They need mental stimulation that makes them think differently, question their beliefs, or see things from new angles. You're not intimidated by their intelligence or trying to impress them with yours. Instead, you engage in genuine intellectual discourse that pushes them to think deeper and broader. You bring new ideas, different viewpoints, and complex thoughts that make conversations genuinely stimulating. This intellectual challenge triggers their competitive instincts in positive ways. They want to keep up with you mentally, which means they have to bring their best intellectual game to every interaction. The mental effort required to engage with you makes the connection feel valuable and stimulating. Authentic independence that doesn't need them. Nothing is more attractive to an avoidant than someone who genuinely doesn't need them but chooses to include them anyway. Your independence isn't performed for their benefit. It's real self-sufficiency that makes you genuinely attractive rather than just strategically unavailable. You have your own goals, your own social circle, your own emotional regulation skills, and your own sense of identity that doesn't require their validation or presence. When you're with them, it's because you want to be, not because you need to be. This authentic independence makes them feel safe to get closer, because they know you won't become clingy or lose yourself in the relationship. They can explore intimacy without fear that you'll become dependent or demanding based on that closeness. 6. Emotional strength that doesn't break under pressure. Avoidants are psychologically turned on by people who can handle their emotional unavailability without becoming victims or martyrs. When they pull away, create distance, or become difficult, you don't crumble or chase, you maintain your emotional center and continue living your life. This emotional strength isn't hardness or indifference, it's genuine resilience that allows you to weather their storms without losing yourself in their chaos. You don't take their moods personally. Don't try to fix their patterns, and don't sacrifice your peace for their comfort. They find this strength incredibly attractive because it means they can be themselves without destroying you. They can have their emotional ups and downs without feeling guilty about how it affects someone else, which allows them to relax their hypervigilant people-pleasing tendencies. 7. Selective investment that must be earned. The ultimate psychological turn-on for avoidance is someone whose emotional investment, attention, and energy must be earned through consistent behavior rather than given freely up front. You don't invest deeply until they've proven they can handle that investment responsibly. This selective investment approach triggers their competitive instincts because it means they have to actually work to earn your deeper levels of care and attention. They can't just coast on charm or intermittent attention. They have to demonstrate genuine consistency and effort. You start with minimal investment and gradually increase it based on their actions rather than their potential. This approach protects you from over-investing in someone who isn't ready while giving them clear incentives to step up their game if they want more access to you. The psychological attraction formula. These psychological turn-ons work because they provide everything avoidants crave: challenge, stimulation, safety, and scarcity, without triggering their fear responses. You become the person they want to chase rather than the person they want to run from. The key is being genuinely attractive rather than strategically manipulative. These qualities must be authentic parts of your personality rather than performances designed to hook an avoidant. Real psychological attraction comes from being genuinely fascinating rather than just playing hard to get.